Hello, welcome to Introduction to Java Programming. In this session, we learn about basic programming constructs of Java. Let's start. Basic programming constructs of Java are also called building blocks of Java or building blocks of a programming language. For any language, whether it may be C, C++, Java, Python, whatever it may be, there are some basic building blocks. One has to understand these building blocks of the language to write better programs. Before actually go and understand what are the basic building blocks, let's understand what is the similarity between a natural language and a programming language. So there is an analogy between a natural language and a programming language. So what's a natural language? Natural language is a language that we speak, the language in which we write. As an example, English is the natural language we all actually communicating with. Now, of course, you can consider Hindi as a natural language, and it may be Marathi or maybe Tamil or Bengali, Telugu, whatever it is. Okay, so mostly I can say your mother tongues are your national languages. Otherwise, English can be considered as an universal language and it's a natural language. And there are good number of programming languages starting with C, C++, Java. These are all one family. And of course, you have Python, then you have PHP, then you have JavaScript. And of course, these languages are one family. Python, PHP, JavaScript share the similar syntax. Of course, JavaScript has both the C as well as Python, PHP influence. And of course, there are good number of programming languages, right? So what is the analogy between both of them? Let's understand first of all, how do we learn a natural language? So for example, we want to learn English. So how do we learn? So initially we start by learning the alphabets. So when we send our kids to school, otherwise in the preschool, in the home itself, we'll actually make our kids to learn alphabets, right? So we will get some charts, some pictures, and we'll make them spell A, B, C kind of things actually. So in order to learn English, you need to first understand and know about alphabets. So these alphabets are in capital as well as in smaller case. So total there are 52 alphabets that we have to learn in order to learn English language, right? So both in capitals as well as small. Of course, we need to know also the numbers 0 to 9. Of course, its numbers are not part of the English, but numbers also required to make a sentence or to write some paragraph, etc. Okay, so as a kid, you will be asked to learn about the alphabets as well as the numbers. So once you know these alphabets, later we actually learn the words. For example, A for apple, B for bat, C for cat, D for dog, etc. Right? So when we combine these alphabets, we are actually getting some certain words. Right? So DOZ dog, CAT cat, right? So we can actually make words from alphabets. So once we know also the words, then we can actually try to make up a sentence. But in order to make up a sentence, you require something more, that is actually grammar. That's nothing but rules or regulations. For example, I have an apple and I have a word that is called fruit. Apple and fruit, these are two different words. So how do I connect them? How do I make a meaningful sentence? I have to say apple is a fruit. Apple is a delicious fruit. So in order to connect these two words, I require some grammar. So I'm using is over here, I'm using a over here. So these are all actually comes from uh, the rules, the grammar, right? So we should learn about the grammar. There is so much in the grammar, and we have to learn so that you can actually make up a sentence. Once you know how to write a sentence, then group of sentences actually become a paragraph. If you know how to write a paragraph in English, we can assume you have mastered the language, right? So this is how you can learn any natural language. Now, learning a programming language is also analogous to learning a natural language. So whatever the language you take, so we need to first learn about the care set of this particular programming language. What are all allowed as a care set? So that means what are all alphabets for this programming language? And a programming language care set is more of what is a natural language. So here in the care set, if you see of these programming languages, you will have this capital A to Z for sure, and also small a to Z. And of course, you will have 0 to 9. And there are good number of special symbols. There are good number of special symbols. Okay, so that actually forms the care set. And the care set has fixed size actually. So C's care set is of 8-bit. So now you will have maximum possible characters are 256. Whereas Java, it is 16-bit. You will have 65,536 characters, which are possible in Java. So just like alphabet, we need to learn about char set over there. And once you have the char set, then you need to have the words, right? So here in the words in the programming language are called identifiers. So identifiers are nothing but the named words which will be used in a programming language. So for our Java program, let's see here the named words like public class, first, public static void, main, string, aux, system out, println. These are all the words which we are using actually. So all those named words are actually identifiers. Those are nothing but the words when you compare that with a natural language. And these named words are of several types actually. Okay, so you will have keywords as named words, like just like public class. Then you have something called variables. You have something called variables to store values, and you have something called constants, and you have something called data types. Okay, so these are all the identifiers and etc. Of course, the names of classes, names of methods are also the named words. So we should know about all these things in a programming language, right? And then just like a grammar over here in a natural language, so here you should know some rules and regulations. So programming language is for certain computation. So here, in place of a grammar, you will have operators and expressions. Like a grammar here, you should know about operators and expressions. As an example, here I have a variable A and another variable B, and A and B are holding certain data. Now I want to add them. I require an operator, and I have to make an expression actually, just like this. I have to make an expression. Let's say sum equal to sum is another variable A plus B, and with a semicolon. So A is a variable, B is a variable, sum is a variable, equal to is an operator, plus is an operator, and line is ending with a semicolon actually. Okay, so here the grammar part is taken care by the operators and expressions. So how expressions are written and how expressions are evaluated, what is an operator, how many kinds of operators are there, what is operator precedency, what is operator associativity. So all these things will actually speak of grammar for this programming language. So once you know how to make a statement, okay, so then you can write set of statements over here and your program is ready. A set of programs, just like a paragraph, you will have a program. But that's not enough actually. In natural language, you can actually stop after you learn a paragraph, writing a paragraph. But if you write a set of statements, a set of instructions or statements, that's not enough of a programming. That's not enough of a programming language, or that's not enough of a program. You require few more things as well, because your program may not be sequential always. Your program has to jump from one place to the other place. Your program has to take certain decision. Based on that, it has to execute something and it has to skip something. And your program may require to execute few lines of statement iteratively. Okay, so your a programming language is more of what a natural language is. So you have so many things coming up over here actually. So you have decision making statements. You can also call as control statements. So here we have different kind of decision making statements, or the control statements, starting from selection statements, then we have looping statements, and then we have jump statements. Okay, so the point here is learning a programming language is analogous to learning a natural language. In this process, you need to understand the basic building blocks of the programming language. So now when we come and see for Java, so the basic programming constructs of Java, what are all required to be known by a programmer is as follows. First of all, one should know the char set. So char set is nothing but the character set which is allowed in the programming language. For Java, the char set is of 16-bit. We have a 16-bit char set. So with 16-bit char set, you will have 2 power 16 characters allowed, which is actually 65,536 characters. So what are all there in this particular char set? So you will have capital A to Z, you will have small a to Z, you will have 0 to 9, you have special symbols which are printable and which are non-printable. So we will see that discussion in the next session. Right? So with the available char set, we can actually make up certain identifiers. Identifiers are nothing but the named words in a programming language. And these identifiers can be variables, and these identifiers can be constants. These identifiers can be data types, and these identifiers can be reserved words or keywords, and these identifiers can be names of classes, methods, interfaces, etc. and etc. What's a variable? Simply said, a variable is to hold the data and which will be changing during the program execution. It varies during the program execution. For example, I have x value equal to 10, and later my x value may be some other value because I may be doing x plus plus or x into 10 or any other um, arithmetic I'm going to do on my x. Variable is something which has tendency to change during the program execution. And constants are something which are actually constant. That means which are not going to change. For example, I have a value pi that equal to 3.14. Pi value is 3.14. So whenever you say pi, and it should be 3.14, it should be any other value. So whenever you require such kind of data to be represented, we can actually go as a constant declaration. And of course, in Java, we will have a final modifier, which actually speaks of the constants. Okay, so these are all the identifiers. And then data types. So we have 8 primitive data types in Java. There are 8 primitive data types. We need to understand all these data types in very detailed manner. So these data types are also identifiers. Like what are the data types? For example, integer, your double, your float, and your boolean, your character, right? And etc. All these are actually the data types. We have 8 primitive types, and we are going to understand that. And all keywords actually is in our first Java program. We can actually see few keywords right here. Public is there, class is there, static is there, void is there. So these are all the keywords actually, right? So these keywords um, are also called reserved words, which have some predefined meaning. So in Java, we have 53 keywords, and we need to understand each and every of these keyword. Okay, and coming to the names actually. So names of classes. So for example, I have a name of class as first and name of class as welcome. I have a name of class as add, and I have name of class as a name actually. So you can see all these things here: name.java, add.java, first.java, welcome.java. So these are all the names of the classes. In the same fashion, we'll have the names of methods, we'll have names of interfaces, we'll have names of enums, names of packages. So all these things are also identifiers. So these all things have to be learned actually. So these are just like words in a natural language. Okay, so once we understand what is a char set and what are the identifiers in detail, then we can actually go for operators, so that we can actually make up certain expressions. When you have an operator, you can actually make an expression. So we'll speak of here what is operator precedence. What is the priority of operator? Which operator has highest precedence? So precedence, that thing comes actually as part of operator. And of course, there is something that we need to discuss is actually associativity. Associativity of the operators. Precedence, for example, the product operator has a greater priority than the plus operator. And associativity, we have two kinds of associativity: left associative, right associative. Almost all operators are left associative. Only few operators like assignment operator and increment decrement operators are right associative. We'll be discussing about this left and right associativity and the precedence of these operators, and then we will see how an expression is made and how an expression is evaluated. To evaluate an expression, we need to have the knowledge of the precedence. But of course, we have different categories of operators. Broadly, we have unary operators, we have binary operators, we have ternary operators, right? And this is actually based on how the operator is working on the operands. But there are different kinds of operators like arithmetic operators, relational operators, logical, bitwise, increment, decrement, assignment operator, ternary operator. Like that, we have different kinds of operators, and each operator we have to understand. That is one of the basic building block. So once we know operators, then you can actually make up certain statements, right? So that means you can actually write certain instructions. So you can write sum equal to a plus b, and you can actually say some division equal to a by b, some result equal to a into b. Like that, you can actually make up certain instructions, not just arithmetic, but you can actually find some formulas. You can actually convert them into certain instructions, but that's not enough actually. Okay, so programming language is more of natural language. So you require certain control statements. You require certain control statements. So these are all the control statements which I have written here. So these control statements, we have selection statement. So selecting one out of two, or selecting a few out of many. So in order to learn with selection statement, so we should know about if statement and we should know about switch statement. So these two are the selection statement. If is a two-way statement and switch is a multi-way statement. And what are the forms of if? Simple if else, nested if else if ladder. There are four forms of if statement. Then we have a switch statement. Okay, so what is the difference and where we have to use, and if or switch, in what situation which selection statement has to be used, why two kinds of selection statements. So all these things have to be understood. So by having this if and switch, we can actually skip some part of the code, and we will actually execute some part of the code, the other part of the code. And then we have looping statement, which are also called iterative statements as the basic building blocks. So these iterative statements basically are three kinds. So we have a while loop and we have a do while loop. So we should understand what is the difference between while and do while. And of course, we have a for loop. And most advanced iterative statement, that is for. And in fact, this for has a special syntax actually. So that is actually for each style. So we have another form of for, we have a that is nothing but for each style. So these three looping statement we should know, because looping statements are actually a mandatory in any programming language to solve a considerable problem. Because you may be using a group of elements like arrays, you may be using collections. So your data will be in forms of groups. So you cannot comprehend them by having a single line. So you should write a loop such that iteratively you will go to all the data, fetch that, modify that, delete that, kind of things can happen. So mostly we have to use the looping statements. So traditional looping statements like while and do while, otherwise the advanced statements like for or for each statement. So these are the looping statements or one of the basic building blocks. And then we need to understand the jump statements, and there are three jump statements. One is break, another is continue, and we have something called return. These are three are called jump statements because these statements make us to jump from one place to the other place in a programming in a program. Okay, so whatever the programming language it is. So break actually breaks the execution and jumps from that particular block to some other place. And there are good number of use cases for this break. Whenever you are finding a prime number, whenever you are searching an element in a group, you have to make use of the break so as to efficiently make your program. And then continue is there. Continue is used to skip certain iterations. When you are continuously executing a loop body, and sometimes you want to skip the loop body for some reasons. So there are good number of use cases for this also. And continue is one of the most useful jump statements to be used in programming languages. And of course, return. So return is mandatory for methods actually. So every method returns something. If it's not returning, we have to say void. And return has two use cases. Just return and return with certain value. Whenever you use in methods, it returns with certain value, but directly return also can be used such that you will come out of that particular program. You will exit from that particular program by having a return. So these all make some jump from one point to the other points. That's why these are called jump statements. So these are all the basic programming constructs of any programming language, not just Java. If you understand all these things in Java, assume you have understand them in C, C++, JavaScript, as well as Python also. Mostly things will be same with a few differences. Once you understand, if you have understood all these things in C language, now straight away assume you have understood in Java. 80% of the things are already done in Java if you understand in C. Only new things will be there that has to be discussed in Java. And if you understand them in C++, same case actually. You need not to do again in Java because 80% of the things are already done. And you don't have any knowledge of C, C++, or other programming languages. Now you understand everything from the scratch in Java, then assume it can be assumed that you understood all of these things in other programming languages as well. So that's about the basic programming constructs or basic building blocks of a programming language. So these all have to be thoroughly understood. One has to understand all these things very much in detail. So coming sessions, we will actually take up one by one. So one day we speak of a car set, then other day we speak of identifiers, then we speak of operators, then we speak of control statements, then looping statements and jump statements. This itself will actually take 3 to 4 hours for the whole of basic building blocks. So these things we are going to see in coming sessions. So that's all for this session. Hope to see you in the next session. Thank you.